Hello, history lovers. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going deep into history and exploring one of the most powerful kingdoms of the Middle Ages, the First Bulgarian Empire. Are you ready to learn about its rise, its victories, and how it became a legend? If you are, grab your coffee and sit back because we are going on an incredible journey. 681 to 1018, First Bulgarian Empire. The First Bulgarian Empire was a medieval Bulgar-Slavic and later Bulgarian state that existed in southeastern Europe between the 7th and 11th centuries CE. It was founded in 680 to 681 after part of the Bulgars, led by Asparuh, moved south to the northeastern Balkans. There they secured Byzantine recognition of their right to settle south of the Danube by defeating, possibly with the help of local South Slavic tribes, the Byzantine army led by Constantine IV. During the 9th and 10th century, Bulgaria, at the height of its power, spread from the Danube Bend to the Black Sea and from the Dnieper River to the Adriatic Sea, and became an important power in the region, competing with the Byzantine Empire. It became the foremost cultural and spiritual center of South Slavic Europe throughout most of the Middle Ages. Balkans. Parts of the Eastern Balkan Peninsula were in antiquity inhabited by the Thracians, who were a group of Indo-European tribes. The whole region as far north as the Danube River was gradually incorporated into the Roman Empire by the 1st century CE. The decline of the Roman Empire after the 3rd century CE and the continuous invasions of Goths and Huns left much of the region devastated, depopulated, and in economic decline by the 5th century. The surviving eastern half of the Roman Empire, called by later historians the Byzantine Empire, could not exercise effective control in these territories other than in the coastal areas and certain cities in the interior. Nonetheless, it never relinquished the claim to the whole region up to the Danube. A series of administrative, legislative, military, and economic reforms somewhat improved the situation, but despite these reforms, disorder continued in much of the Balkans. The reign of Emperor Justinian I, r. 527 to 565, saw temporary recovery of control and reconstruction of a number of fortresses. But after his death, the empire was unable to face the threat of the Slavs due to the significant reduction of revenue and manpower. 570 January 1st Slavic migrations to the Balkans. The Slavs of Indo-European origin were first mentioned in written sources to inhabit the territories to the north of the Danube in the 5th century CE, but most historians agree that they had arrived earlier. The Slavic incursions in the Balkans increased during the second half of Justinian I's reign, and while these were initially pillaging raids, large-scale settlement began in the 570s and 580s. Consumed in bitter wars with the Persian-Sasanian Empire in the east, the Byzantines had few resources with which to confront the Slavs. The Slavs came in large numbers, and the lack of political organization made it very difficult to stop them because there was no political leader to defeat in battle and thereby force their retreat. 600 Jan 1 Bulgars. The Bulgars were Turkic semi-nomadic warrior tribes that flourished in the Pontic-Caspian steppe and the Volga region during the 7th century. They became known as nomadic equestrians in the Volga-Ural region, but some researchers say that their ethnic roots can be traced to Central Asia. They spoke a form of Turkic as their main language. The Bulgars included the tribes of Onogurs, Utigurs, and Kutrigurs, among others. The first clear mention of the Bulgars in written sources dates from 480, when they served as the allies of the Byzantine Emperor Zeno. In the first half of the 6th century, the Bulgars occasionally raided the Byzantine Empire. 630 January 1st, Bulgars break free from the Avars. As the power of the Western Turks faded in the 600s, the Avars reasserted their domination over the Bulgars. Between 630 and 635, Khan Kubrat of the Dulo clan managed to unite the main Bulgar tribes and to declare independence from the Avars. creating a powerful confederation called Old Great Bulgaria, also known as Patria Onoguria, between the Black Sea, the Sea of Azov, and the Caucasus. Kubrat, who was baptized in Constantinople in 619, concluded an alliance with the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, R. 610 to 641, and the two countries remained in good relations until Kubrat's death between 650 and 665. Kubrat fought with the Khazars in the east, but after his demise, Old Great Bulgaria disintegrated under strong Khazar pressure in 668, and his 5 sons parted with their followers. The eldest Batbayan remained in his homeland as Kubrat's successor and eventually became a Khazar vassal. The second brother Kotrag migrated to the Middle Volga region and founded Volga Bulgaria. The third brother Asparu led his people west to the lower Danube. The fourth one, Kuber, initially settled in Pannonia under Avar suzerainty, but revolted and moved to the region of Macedonia, while the fifth brother Alchek settled in central Italy. 668 John, one Khazars disperses Old Great Bulgaria. The two confederations of Bulgars and Khazars fought for supremacy on the western steppe land, and with the ascendancy of the latter, the former either succumbed to Khazar rule or, as under Asparuk, Kubrat's son, shifted even further west across the Danube to lay the foundations of the First Bulgarian Empire in the Balkans. 670 John First Bulgars of Asparu moved southwards. The Bulgars of Asparu moved westwards to what is now Bessarabia, subdued the territories to the north of the Danube in modern Wallachia, and established themselves in the Danube Delta. In the 670s, they crossed the Danube into Scythia Minor, nominally a Byzantine province, whose steppe grasslands and pastures were important for the large herd stocks of the Bulgars, in addition to the grazing grounds to the west of the Dniester River, already under their control. 671 January First Slav-Bulgars relationship. The relations between the Bulgars and the local Slavs is a matter of debate depending on the interpretation of the Byzantine sources. Vassals Latarsky asserts that they concluded a treaty, but most historians agree that they were subjugated. The Bulgars were superior organizationally and militarily, and came to dominate politically the new state, but there was cooperation between them and the Slavs for the protection of the country. The Slavs were allowed to retain their chiefs, to abide to their customs, and in return, they were to pay tribute in kind and to provide foot soldiers for the army. The 7 Slavic tribes were relocated to the west to protect the frontier with the Avar Khaganate, while the Severi were resettled in the eastern Balkan mountains to guard the passes to the Byzantine Empire. The number of Asparu's Bulgars is difficult to estimate. Vassals Latarsky and John van Antwerp Fine Jr. suggest that they were not particularly numerous, numbering some 10,000, while Stephen Runciman considers that the tribe must have been of considerable dimensions. The Bulgars settled mainly in the northeast, establishing the capital at Pliska, which was initially a colossal encampment of 23 square kilometers protected with earthen ramparts. 680 June First Battle of Ongal. In 680, the Byzantine Emperor Constantine IV, having recently defeated the Arabs, led an expedition at the head of a huge army and fleet to drive off the Bulgars, but suffered a disastrous defeat at the hands of Asparu at Onglos, a swampy region in or around the Danube Delta, where the Bulgars had set a fortified camp. The Battle of Ongal took place in the summer of 680 in the Ongal area, an unspecified location in and around the Danube Delta near the Puce Island, present-day Tulcea County, Romania. It was fought between the Bulgars, who had recently invaded the Balkans, and the Byzantine Empire, which ultimately lost the battle. The battle was crucial for the creation of the First Bulgarian Empire. 681 January 1st, First Bulgarian Empire. Asparu's victory led to the Bulgarian conquest of Moesia, and the establishment of some sort of alliance between the Bulgars and the local Slavic groups, described as the Severi and 7 Slavic tribes. As Asparuh commenced to raid across the mountains into Byzantine Thrace in 681, Constantine IV decided to cut his losses and conclude a treaty, whereby the Byzantine Empire paid the Bulgars an annual tribute. These events are seen in retrospect as the establishment of the Bulgarian state and its recognition by the Byzantine Empire. 705, John First Khan Tervel aids Justinian II. To the northeast, the war with the Khazars persisted, and in 700 Khan Asparuh perished in battle with them. Despite this setback, the consolidation of the country continued under Asparuh's successor, Khan Tervel, R. 700 to 721. In 705, he assisted the deposed Byzantine Emperor Justinian II in regaining his throne in return for the Zagor region of northern Thrace, the first expansion of Bulgaria to the south of the Balkan Mountains. In addition, Tervel obtained the title Caesar, and having been enthroned alongside the emperor, received the obeisance of the citizenry of Constantinople and numerous gifts. 708, January 1st. Borders between Bulgaria and Byzantine Empire defined. However, 3 years later, Justinian tried to regain the ceded territory by force, but his army was defeated at Anchialis. Skirmishes continued until 716, when Khan Tervel signed an important agreement with Byzantium that defined the borders and the Byzantine tribute, regulated trade relations, and provided for the exchange of prisoners and fugitives. 718, August 15th, Bulgarians aid the Byzantines at Siege of Constantinople. On May 25th, 717, Leo the Isaurian was crowned Emperor of Byzantium. During the summer of the same year, the Arabs, led by Maslama ibn Abd al-Malik, crossed the Dardanelles and besieged Constantinople with a large army and navy. Leo III made a plea to Tervel for help, relying on the Treaty of 716, and Tervel agreed. The first clash between the Bulgars and the Arabs ended with a Bulgar victory. During the very first stages of the siege, the Bulgars appeared in the Muslim rear, and large part of their army was destroyed, and the rest were trapped. The Arabs built 2 trenches around their camp facing the Bulgarian army and the walls of the city. They persisted with the siege despite the severe winter with 100 days of snowfall. In the spring, the Byzantine navy destroyed the Arab fleets that had arrived with new provisions and equipment, while a Byzantine army defeated Arab reinforcements in Bithynia. Finally, in early summer, the Arabs engaged the Bulgars in battle, but suffered a crushing defeat. According to Theophanes the Confessor, the Bulgars slaughtered some 22,000 Arabs in the battle. Shortly after, the Arabs raised the siege. Most historians primarily attribute the Byzantine-Bulgarian victory with stopping the Arab offensives against Europe. 719, Yan I. Further involvement in Byzantine affairs. In 719, Tervel again interfered in the internal affairs of the Byzantine Empire when the deposed Emperor Anastasios too asked for his assistance to regain the throne. Tervel provided him with troops and 360,000 gold coins. Anastasios marched to Constantinople, but its population refused to cooperate. In the meantime, Leo III sent a letter to Tervel in which he urged him to respect the treaty and to prefer peace to war. Because Anastasios was abandoned by his supporters, the Bulgarian ruler agreed to Leo III's pleas and broke relations with the usurper. He also sent Leo III many of the conspirators who had sought refuge in Pliska. 721, Jan I to 738, Reign of Cormesi. According to the nominalia of the Bulgarian Khans, Imenik Cormesi would have reigned for 28 years and was a descendant of the royal Dulo clan. According to the chronology developed by Moskov, Cormesi would have reigned 715 to 721, and the longer period reflected in the Imenik would have indicated the duration of his life or would have included a period of association with his predecessors. Other chronologies date the reign of Cormesi to 721 to 738, but cannot be reconciled with the data of the Amenik. Kormisi is encountered in relation to the events surrounding the peace treaty between Bulgaria and the Byzantine Empire between 715 and 717. The chronology has to be argued from the names of the emperor and patriarch involved, for which our only source is the Byzantine chronicler Theophanes the Confessor. According to Theophanes, the treaty was signed by Kormisi as ruler of the Bulgars. Kormisi is not mentioned in any other historical context. The fact that there is no record of wars between Bulgaria and the Byzantine Empire during his reign, however, implies that he sustained the peace between the two countries. 738 January 1st to 753 reign of Savar of Bulgaria. Savar was a ruler of Bulgaria in the 8th century. The nominalia of the Bulgarian Khan states that Savar belonged to the Dulo clan and ruled for 15 years. Some chronologies place his reign in 738 to 754. According to historians such as Stephen Runciman and David Marshall Lang, Savar was the last ruler of the Dulo dynasty, and with Savar died out the lineage of Attila the Hun. 753 January 1st. From victories to struggle for survival, with the demise of Khan. Savar, the ruling Dulo clan, died out, and the Khanate fell into a long political crisis during which the young country was on the verge of destruction. In just 15 years, 7 Khans reigned, and all of them were murdered. The only surviving sources of this period are Byzantine and present only the Byzantine point of view of the ensuing political turmoil in Bulgaria. They describe 2 factions struggling for power, one that sought peaceful relations with the empire, which was dominant until 755, and one that favored war. These sources present the relations with the Byzantine Empire as the main issue in this internal struggle, and do not mention the other reasons, which could have been more important for the Bulgarian elite. It is likely that the relationship between the politically dominant Bulgars and the more numerous Slavs was the main issue behind the struggle, but there is no evidence about the aims of the rival factions. 753 January 2nd reign of Kormisosh. Kormisosh was a ruler of Bulgaria during the 8th century. The Namelist of Bulgarian rulers states that he belonged to the Ukil, or Vokil clan, and ruled for 17 years. According to the chronology developed by Moskov, Kormisosh would have reigned from 737 to 754. Other chronologies place his reign in 753 to 756, but cannot be reconciled with the testimony of the Namelist, or would require us to assume a long period of co-regency. This stresses the fact that the accession of Kormisosh represents a change of dynasty, but it remains unclear whether that was done through violence. The reign of Kormisosh inaugurated a prolonged period of war with the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Emperor Constantine V Kopronymos had begun to fortify the frontier and started settling Armenians and Syrians in Byzantine Thrace. In response, Kormisosh demanded the payment of tribute, perhaps constituting an increase in the traditional payments. Rebuffed, Kormisosh raided into Thrace, reaching the Anastasian Wall stretching between the Black Sea and the Sea of Marmara 40 kilometers in front of Constantinople. Constantine V marched out with his army, defeated the Bulgarians and turned them to flight. 756 Jan, one reign of Vinay of Bulgaria. Vinay was ruler of Bulgaria in the mid-8th century. According to the nominalia of the Bulgarian Khans, Vinay reigned for 7 years and was a member of the Vokil clan. Vinay ascended the throne after the defeat of his predecessor Kormisosh by the Eastern Roman Emperor Constantine V. In circa 756, Constantine campaigned against Bulgaria by land and sea and defeated the Bulgarian army led by Vinay at Marseilles, Karnobat. The defeated monarch sued for peace and undertook to send his own children as hostages. In 759, Constantine invaded Bulgaria again, but this time his army was ambushed in the mountain passes of the Stara Planina, Battle of the Rishki Pass. Vinay did not follow up his victory and sought to re-establish the peace. This won Vinay the opposition of the Bulgarian nobility, which had Vinay massacred together with his family, except Pagan of Bulgaria. 759, January 2nd, Battle of the Rishki Pass. Between 755 and 775, the Byzantine Emperor Constantine V organized 9 campaigns to eliminate Bulgaria, and although he managed to defeat the Bulgarians several times, he never achieved his goal. In 759, the emperor led an army towards Bulgaria, but Khan Vinek had enough time to bar several mountain passes. When the Byzantines reached the Rishki Pass, they were ambushed and completely defeated. The Byzantine historian Theophanes the Confessor wrote that the Bulgarians killed the strategos of Thrace Leo, the commander of Drama, and many soldiers. Khan Vinek did not take the favorable opportunity to advance on enemy territory and sued for peace. This act was very unpopular among the nobles, and the Khan was murdered in 761. 762. Jan I reign of Telets of Bulgaria. Telets, a member of the Ugain clan, was the ruler of Bulgaria from 762 to 765. Byzantine sources indicate that Telets replaced the legitimate rulers of Bulgaria. The same sources describe Telets as a brave and energetic man in his prime, about 30 years old. Scholars have conjectured that Telets may have belonged to an anti-Slavic faction of the Bulgarian nobility. 763. June 30th Battle of Anchialis Pomori, Bulgaria. After his accession, Telets led a well-trained and well-armed army against the Byzantine Empire and devastated the empire's frontier zone, inviting the emperor to a contest of strength. Emperor Constantine V of Kopronimos marched north on June 16, 763, while another army was carried by a fleet of 800 ships, each carrying infantry and 12 horsemen, with the intent to create a pincer movement from the north. The energetic Bulgarian Khan at first barred the mountain passes with his troops and some 20,000 Slavic auxiliaries and took advantageous positions on the heights near Anchialis, but his self-confidence and impatience incited him to go down to the lowlands and charge the enemy. The battle started at 10 in the morning and lasted until sunset. It was long and bloody, but in the end the Byzantines were victorious, although they lost many soldiers, nobles, and commanders. The Bulgarians also had heavy casualties and many were captured, while Telets managed to escape. Constantine V entered his capital in triumph and then killed the prisoners. The fate of Teles was similar. 2 years later, he was murdered because of the defeat. 792. January 1st, Bulgars grows strong. Despite being able to defeat the Bulgarians several times, the Byzantines were able neither to conquer Bulgaria nor to impose their suzerainty and a lasting peace, which is a testimony to the resilience, fighting skills, and ideological coherence of the Bulgarian state. The devastation brought to the country by the 9 campaigns of Constantine V firmly rallied the Slavs behind the Bulgars and greatly increased the dislike of the Byzantines, turning Bulgaria into a hostile neighbor. The hostilities continued until 792, when Khan Kardam achieved an important victory in the Battle of Marseille, forcing the Byzantines once again to pay tribute to the Khans. As a result of the victory, the crisis was finally overcome, and Bulgaria entered the new century stable, stronger, and consolidated. 803 January 1st territorial expansion, Bulgaria doubles in size. During the reign of Krum, R. 803 to 814, Bulgaria doubled in size and expanded to the south, west, and north, occupying the vast lands along the Middle Danube and Transylvania, becoming European medieval great power during the 9th and 10th century, along with the Byzantine and Frankish empires. 804. John I Bulgars eliminate the Avar Khaganate. Between 804 and 806, the Bulgarian armies thoroughly eliminated the Avar Khaganate, which had suffered a crippling blow by the Franks in 796, and a border with the Frankish Empire was established along the Middle Danube or Tisa. 809. January First Siege of Serdica. Prompted by the Byzantine moves to consolidate their hold on the Slavs in Macedonia and northern Greece, and in response to a Byzantine raid against the country, the Bulgarians confronted the Byzantine Empire. In 808, they raided the valley of the Struma River, defeating a Byzantine army, and in 809 captured the important city of Serdica, modern Sofia. 811. Jules 26 Bulgars delivers one of the worst Byzantine defeats. In 811, the Byzantine Emperor Nicephorus I launched a massive offensive against Bulgaria, seized, plundered, and burned down the capital Pliska, but on the way back, the Byzantine army was decisively defeated in the Battle of the Varbitsa Pass. Nicephorus I himself was slain, along with most of his troops, and his skull was lined with silver and used as a drinking cup. The Battle of Pliska was one of the worst defeats in Byzantine history. It deterred Byzantine rulers from sending their troops north of the Balkans for more than 150 years afterwards, which increased the influence and spread of the Bulgarians to the west and south of the Balkan Peninsula, resulting in a great territorial enlargement of the First Bulgarian Empire. This was the first time a Byzantine emperor was killed in battle since the Battle of Adrianople in 378. 813. June 22. Battle of Versinikia. Krum took the initiative and in 812 moved the war towards Thrace, capturing the key Black Sea port of Mesembria and defeating the Byzantines once more at Versinikia in 813 before proposing a generous peace settlement. However, during the negotiations, the Byzantines attempted to assassinate Krum. In response, the Bulgarians pillaged eastern Thrace and seized the important city of Adrianople, resettling its 10,000 inhabitants in Bulgaria across the Danube. Infuriated by the treachery of the Byzantines, Krum ordered all churches, monasteries, and palaces outside Constantinople to be destroyed. The captured Byzantines were slain, and the riches from the palaces were sent to Bulgaria on carts. After that, all enemy fortresses in the surroundings of Constantinople and Marmara Sea were seized and razed to the ground. The castles and settlements in the hinterland of eastern Thrace were looted, and the whole region devastated. Then Krum returned to Adrianople and strengthened the besieging forces. With the help of mangonels and battering rams, he forced the city to surrender. The Bulgarians captured 10,000 people who were resettled in Bulgaria across the Danube. A further 50,000 from other settlements in Thrace were deported there. During the winter, Krum returned to Bulgaria and launched serious preparation for the final assault on Constantinople. The siege machines had to be transported to Constantinople by 5,000 iron-covered carts hauled by 10,000 oxen. However, he died during the height of the preparations on the 13th of April, 814. 814. John I Omertag the Builder. Krum's successor, Khan Omertag, or 814 to 831, concluded a 30-year peace treaty with the Byzantines, thus allowing both countries to restore their economies and finance after the bloody conflicts in the first decade of the century, establishing the border along the Erkizia Trench between Debeltos on the Black Sea and the valley of the Maritsa River at Kalugerovo. To the west, the Bulgarians were in control of Belgrade by the 820s, and the northwestern boundaries with the Frankish Empire were firmly settled along the Middle Danube by 827. To the northeast, Omertag fought the Khazars along the Dnieper River, which was the easternmost limit of Bulgaria. Extensive building was undertaken in the capital Pliska, including the construction of a magnificent palace, pagan temples, ruler's residence, fortress, citadel, water main, and bath, mainly from stone and brick. Omertag started in 814 persecution of Christians, in particular against the Byzantine prisoners of war settled north of the Danube. The expansion to the south and southwest continued under Omurtag's successors under the guidance of the capable Kavhan, First Minister, Isbul. 836, January 1st. Bulgars expand into Macedonia under Khan. Presian ruled 836 to 852. The Bulgarians took most of Macedonia, and the borders of the country reached the Adriatic Sea near Valona and Aegean Sea. Byzantine historians do not mention any resistance against the Bulgarian expansion in Macedonia, leading to the conclusion that the expansion was largely peaceful. With this, Bulgaria had become the dominant power in the Balkans. 852, January 1st reign of Boris I of Bulgaria. Despite a number of military setbacks, the reign of Boris I was marked with significant events that shaped Bulgarian and European history. With the Christianization of Bulgaria in 864, paganism, i.e. Tengrism, was abolished. A skillful diplomat, Boris I successfully exploited the conflict between the Patriarchate of Constantinople and the papacy to secure an autocephalous Bulgarian church, thus dealing with the nobility's concerns about Byzantine interference in Bulgaria's internal affairs. When in 885 the disciples of Saints Cyril and Methodius were banished from Great Moravia, Boris I gave them refuge and provided assistance which saved the Glagolithic, and later promoted the development of the Cyrillic script in Preslav and the Slavic literature. After he abdicated in 889, his eldest son and successor tried to restore the old pagan religion, but was deposed by Boris I. During the Council of Preslav, which followed that event, the Byzantine clergy was replaced with Bulgarians, and the Greek language was replaced with what is now known as Old Church Slavonic. 854. January 1st, Bulgaria invades Croatia. After the successful war against Russia, a medieval Serbian state, Bulgaria's ongoing expansion to the west reached Croatian borders. Bulgarian forces invaded Croatia approximately in 853 or 854 in northeastern Bosnia, where Croatia and Bulgaria bordered at the time. According to available sources, there was only one major battle between the Bulgarian army and the Croatian forces. Sources say that the invading army, led by the powerful Bulgarian Khan, Boris I, fought Duke Tripomir's forces on the mountainous territory of present-day northeastern Bosnia and Herzegovina in 854. The exact place and time of the battle is not known due to the lack of contemporary accounts of the battle. Neither Bulgarian nor Croatian side emerged victorious. Very soon afterward, both Boris of Bulgaria and Trpimir of Croatia turned to diplomacy and reached a peace treaty. Negotiations resulted in a long-term establishment of peace with the border between the Duchy of Croatia and the Bulgarian Khanate, stabilized at the Drina River, between modern-day Bosnia and Herzegovina and the Republic of Serbia. 864, January 1st, Christianization of Bulgaria, Preslav, Bulgaria. Despite all the military setbacks and natural disasters, the skillful diplomacy of Boris I prevented any territorial losses and kept the realm intact. In this complex international situation, Christianity had become attractive as a religion by the mid-9th century because it provided better opportunities for forging reliable alliances and diplomatic ties. Taking this into account, as well as a variety of internal factors, Boris I converted to Christianity in 864, assuming the title Knyaz, Prince. Taking advantage of the struggle between the papacy in Rome and the ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople, Boris I brilliantly maneuvered to assert the independence of the newly established Bulgarian Church. To check the possibility of Byzantine interference in the internal matters of Bulgaria, he sponsored the disciples of the brothers Cyril and Methodius to create literature in Old Bulgarian language. Boris I dealt ruthlessly with the opposition to the Christianization of Bulgaria, crushing a revolt of the nobility in 866 and overthrowing his own son, Vladimir, R. 889 to 893, after he attempted to restore the traditional religion. In 893, he convened the Council of Preslav, where it was decided that the capital of Bulgaria was to be moved from Pliska to Preslav. The Byzantine clergy was to be banished from the country and replaced with Bulgarian clerics, and Old Bulgarian language was to replace the Greek in liturgy. Bulgaria was to become the principal threat to the stability and security of the Byzantine Empire in the 10th century. 893 January 1st reign of Simeon the Great of Bulgaria. Simeon's successful campaigns against the Byzantines, Magyars, and Serbs led Bulgaria to its greatest territorial expansion ever, making it the most powerful state in contemporary Eastern and Southeast Europe. His reign was also a period of unmatched cultural prosperity and enlightenment, later deemed the Golden Age of Bulgarian culture. During Simeon's rule, Bulgaria spread over a territory between the Aegean, the Adriatic, and the Black Sea. The newly independent Bulgarian Orthodox Church became the first new patriarchate besides the Pentarchy, and Bulgarian Glagolitic and Cyrillic translations of Christian texts spread all over the Slavic world of the time. It was at the Preslav Literary School in the 890s that the Cyrillic alphabet was developed. Halfway through his reign, Simeon assumed the title of Emperor, Tsar, having prior to that been styled Prince, Knyaz. 893 February 2nd, Golden Age of Bulgaria. The Golden Age of Bulgaria is the period of the Bulgarian cultural prosperity during the reign of Emperor Simeon I the Great. The term was coined by Spiridon Palausov in the mid-19th century. During this period, there was an increase of literature, writing, arts, architecture, and liturgical reforms. The capital Preslav was built in Byzantine fashion to rival Constantinople. Among the city's most remarkable edifices were the Round Church, also known as the Golden Church, and the Imperial Palace. At that time was created and painted Preslavian pottery, which followed the most prestigious Byzantine models. A chronicle of the 11th century testified that Simeon I had built Preslav for 28 years. Simeon I gathered around himself the so-called Simeon's Circle that included some of the most prominent literary authors in medieval Bulgaria. Simeon the Great himself is alleged to have been active as a writer. Works that are sometimes credited to him include Zlatostruy, Golden Stream, and two of Simeon Svetoslavian collections. The most important genres were Christian edifying oratory eulogies, lives of saints, anthems and poetry, chronicles, and historical narratives. 893. December 1st, early Cyrillic alphabet. In Bulgaria, Clement of Ohrid and Naum of Preslav created, or rather compiled, the new alphabet, which was called Cyrillic and was declared the official alphabet in Bulgaria in 893. The Slavic language was declared as official in the same year. In the following centuries, this alphabet was adopted by other Slavic peoples and states. The introduction of Slavic liturgy paralleled Boris's continued development of churches and monasteries throughout his realm. 894. Jan 1. Byzantine-Bulgarian Trade War. The Byzantine-Bulgarian War of 894-896 was fought between the Bulgarian Empire and the Byzantine Empire as a result of the decision of the Byzantine Emperor Leo VI to move the Bulgarian market from Constantinople to Thessaloniki, which would greatly increase the expenses of the Bulgarian merchants. Following the defeat of the Byzantine army in the initial stages of the war in 894, Leo VI sought aid from the Magyars, who at the time inhabited the steppes to the northeast of Bulgaria. Aided by the Byzantine navy, in 895, the Magyars invaded Dobruja and defeated the Bulgarian troops. Simeon I called for truce and deliberately protracted the negotiations with the Byzantines until securing the assistance of the Pechenegs. 896 January 1st, dealing with the Magyar threat. Having dealt with the pressure from the Magyars and the Byzantines, Simeon was free to plan a campaign against the Magyars looking for retribution. He negotiated a joint force with the Magyars' eastern neighbors, the Pechenegs. Using a Magyar invasion in the lands of the neighboring Slavs in 896 as a casus belli, Simeon headed against the Magyars together with his Pecheneg allies, defeating them completely in the Battle of Southern Bu and making them leave Etelkos forever and settle in Pannonia. Following the defeat of the Magyars, Simeon finally released the Byzantine prisoners in exchange for Bulgarians captured in 895. 896 Jun 1, Battle of Bulgarophigon. The Battle of Bulgarophigon was fought in the summer of 896 near the town of Bulgarophigon, modern Babayeski in Turkey, between the Byzantine Empire and the First Bulgarian Empire. The result was an annihilation of the Byzantine army, which determined the Bulgarian victory in the trade war of 894 to 896. The war ended with a peace treaty which formally lasted until 1783, around Leo VI's death in 912, and under which Byzantium was obliged to pay Bulgaria an annual tribute in exchange for the return of allegedly 120,000 captured Byzantine soldiers and civilians. Under the treaty, the Byzantines also ceded an area between the Black Sea and Stranja to the Bulgarian Empire, while the Bulgarians also promised not to invade Byzantine territory. Simeon often violated the peace treaty with Byzantium, attacking and conquering Byzantine territory on several occasions, such as in 904, when the Bulgarian raids were used by Arabs led by the Byzantine renegade Leo of Tripoli to undertake a maritime campaign and seize Thessaloniki. After the Arabs plundered the city, it was an easy target for Bulgaria and the nearby Slavic tribes. In order to dissuade Simeon from capturing the city and populating it with Slavs, Leo VI was forced to make further territorial concessions to the Bulgarians in the modern region of Macedonia. With the Treaty of 904, all Slavic inhabited lands in modern southern Macedonia and southern Albania were ceded to the Bulgarian Empire, with the borderline running some 20 kilometers north of Thessaloniki. 913, Jan 1 Byzantine-Bulgarian War of 913 to 927. Although the war was provoked by the Byzantine Emperor Alexander's decision to discontinue paying an annual tribute to Bulgaria, the military and ideological initiative was held by Simeon I of Bulgaria, who demanded to be recognized as Tsar and made it clear that he aimed to conquer not only Constantinople, but the rest of the Byzantine Empire as well. 917 Jan 1 Bulgarian-Serbian Wars. The Bulgarian-Serbian Wars of 917 to 924 were a series of conflicts fought between the Bulgarian Empire and the Principality of Serbia as a part of the greater Byzantine-Bulgarian War of 913 to 927. After the Byzantine army was annihilated by the Bulgarians in the Battle of Achelous, the Byzantine diplomacy incited the Principality of Serbia to attack Bulgaria from the west. The Bulgarians dealt with that threat and replaced the Serbian prince with a protege of their own. In the following years, the two empires competed for control over Serbia. In 924, the Serbs rose again, ambushed and defeated a small Bulgarian army. That turn of events provoked a major retaliatory campaign that ended with the annexation of Serbia in the end of the same year. The Bulgarian advance in the Western Balkans were checked by the Croats, who defeated a Bulgarian army in 926. 917, a particularly strong Byzantine army led by Leo Phocas the Elder, son of Nikephoros Phocas, invaded Bulgaria accompanied by the Byzantine navy under the command of Romanos Lekapenos, which sailed to the Bulgarian Black Sea ports. En route to Mesembria, Nesebar, where they were supposed to be reinforced by troops transported by the navy, Phocas's forces stopped to rest near the river of Achelous, not far from the port of Anchialos, Pomori. Once informed of the invasion, Simeon rushed to intercept the Byzantines and attack them from the nearby hills while they were resting disorganized. In the Battle of Achelous of 20 August 917, one of the largest in medieval history, the Bulgarians completely routed the Byzantines and killed many of their commanders, although Phocas managed to escape to Mesembria. Decades later, Leo the Deacon would write that piles of bones can still be seen today at the river Achelous, where the fleeing army of the Romans was then infamously slain. The Battle of Achelous was one of the most important battles in the long Byzantine-Bulgarian wars. It secured the concession of the imperial title to the Bulgarian rulers, and thereby firmly established Bulgaria's role as a key player in Europe. September 1st, Battle of Kata-Sirtai. While the victorious Bulgarian army was marching southwards, the Byzantine commander Leo Phocas, who survived at Achelous, reached Constantinople by sea and gathered the last Byzantine troops to intercept his enemy before reaching the capital. The two armies clashed near the village of Kata-Sirtai, just outside the city, and after a night fight, the Byzantines were completely routed from the battlefield. The last Byzantine military forces were literally destroyed, and the way to Constantinople was opened, but the Serbs rebelled to the west, and the Bulgarians decided to secure their rear before the final assault of the Byzantine capital, which gave the enemy precious time to recover. 921 March 1st, Battle of Pegae. Simeon. I planned to secure his position in Constantinople through a marriage between his daughter and the infant emperor, Constantine VII, R 913-959, thus becoming Basileopator, father-in-law, and guardian of Constantine VII. However, in 919, Admiral Romanos Lekapanos married his daughter to Constantine VII, and in 920 proclaimed himself senior emperor, ruining Simeon I's ambitions to ascend the throne by diplomatic means. Until his death, the Bulgarian monarch never recognized the legitimacy of Romanos's accession to the throne. Thus, in the beginning of 921, Simeon I did not reply to a proposal of the ecumenical patriarch Nicholas Mystikos to betroth one of his daughters or sons to a progeny of Romanos the Fierce, and sent his army into Byzantine Thrace, reaching Kata-Sirtai in the outskirts of Constantinople. The Battle of Pegae took place in a locality called Pegae, i.e. the Spring, named after the nearby Church of St. Mary of the Spring. The Byzantine lines collapsed at the very first Bulgarian attack, and their commanders fled the battlefield. In the subsequent rout, most Byzantine soldiers were killed by the sword, drowned, or were captured. In 922, the Bulgarians continued their successful campaigns in Byzantine Thrace, capturing a number of towns and fortresses, including Adrianople, Thrace's most important city, and Bezië. In June 922, they engaged and defeated yet another Byzantine army at Constantinople, confirming the Bulgarian domination of the Balkans. However, Constantinople itself remained outside their reach, because Bulgaria lacked the naval power to launch a successful siege. The attempts of the Bulgarian Emperor Simeon I to negotiate a joint Bulgarian-Arab assault on the city with the Fatimids were uncovered by the Byzantine and countered. 924. January 1st, Bulgaria annexes Serbia. Simeon I sent a small army led by Theodore Sigrița and Marmaze, but they were ambushed and killed. Zaharija sent their heads and armor to Constantinople. This action provoked a major retaliatory campaign in 924. A large Bulgarian force was dispatched, accompanied by a new candidate, Csaslav, who was born in Preslav to a Bulgarian mother. The Bulgarians ravaged the countryside and forced Zaharia to flee to the Kingdom of Croatia. This time, however, the Bulgarians had decided to change the approach towards the Serbs. They summoned all Serbian Jupans to pay homage to Csaslav, had them arrested and taken to Preslav. Serbia was annexed as a Bulgarian province, expanding the country's border to Croatia, which at the time had reached its apogee and proved to be a dangerous neighbor. The annexation was seen by the Bulgarians as a necessary move since the Serbs had proved to be unreliable allies, and Simeon I had grown wary of the inevitable pattern of war, bribery, and defection. According to Constantine VII's book, De Administrando Imperio, Simeon I resettled the whole population to the interior of Bulgaria, and those who avoided captivity fled to Croatia, leaving the country deserted. 926. January 1st Battle of the Bosnian Highlands. Simeon's aim was to defeat the Byzantine Empire and conquer Constantinople. To achieve his aim, Simeon overran the eastern and central Balkans several times, occupied Serbia, and finally attacked Croatia. The result of the battle was an overwhelming Croatian victory. In 926, Simeon's troops under Aligabotur invaded Croatia, at the time a Byzantine ally, but were completely defeated by the army of King Tomislav in the Battle of the Bosnian Highlands. September 27th, August 1st, Byzantine and Bulgars make peace. Peter the Fine negotiated a peace treaty with the Byzantine government. The Byzantine Emperor Romanos I Lakapenos eagerly accepted the proposal for peace and arranged for a diplomatic marriage between his granddaughter Maria and the Bulgarian monarch. In October 927, Peter arrived near Constantinople to meet Romanos and signed the peace treaty, marrying Maria on the 8th of November in the church of the Zoudokos Pege. To signify the new era in Bulgaro-Byzantine relations, the princess was renamed Irene, peace. The extensive Preslav treasure is thought to represent part of the dowry of the princess. The Treaty of 927 actually represents the fruit of Simeon's military successes and diplomatic initiatives, ably continued by his son's government. Peace was obtained with the frontiers restored to those defined in treaties of 897 and 904. The Byzantines recognized the Bulgarian monarch's title of emperor, basileus, Tsar, and the autocephalous status of the Bulgarian Patriarchate, while the payment of an annual tribute to Bulgaria by the Byzantine Empire was renewed. 934. January 1st 01 Decline and fall of the First Bulgarian Empire. Despite the treaty and the largely peaceful era that followed, the strategic position of the Bulgarian Empire remained difficult. The country was surrounded by aggressive neighbors, the Magyars to the northwest, the Pechenegs and the growing power of Kievan Rusas to the northeast, and the Byzantine Empire to the south, which proved to be an unreliable neighbor. 967, January 2nd, Sviatoslav's invasion of Bulgaria. Relations with the Byzantine Empire worsened after the death of Peter's wife in the mid-960s. Victorious over the Arabs, Emperor Nikephoros II Phocas refused to pay the annual tribute to Bulgaria in 966, complaining of the Bulgarian alliance with the Magyars, and he undertook a show of force at the Bulgarian border. Dissuaded from a direct attack against Bulgaria, Nikephoros II dispatched a messenger to the Rus Prince Sviatoslav Igorovich to arrange a Rus attack against Bulgaria from the north. Sviatoslav readily launched a campaign with a vast force of 60,000 troops, routed the Bulgarians on the Danube, and defeated them in a battle near Silistra, seizing some 80 Bulgarian fortresses in 968. The Byzantines encouraged the Rus ruler Sviatoslav to attack Bulgaria, leading to the defeat of the Bulgarian forces and the occupation of the northern and northeastern part of the country by the Rus for the following 2 years. 968 April First Battle of Silistra. The Battle of Silistra occurred in the spring of 968 near the Bulgarian town of Silistra, but most probably on the modern territory of Romania. It was fought between the armies of Bulgaria and Kievan Rus and resulted in a Rus's victory. Upon the news of the defeat, the Bulgarian Emperor Peter I abdicated. The invasion of the Rus's Prince Sviatoslav was a heavy blow for the Bulgarian Empire. Stunned by the success of his ally and suspicious of his actual intentions, Emperor Nikephoros II hastened to make peace with Bulgaria and arranged the marriage of his wards, the underage emperors Basil II and Constantine VIII, to 2 Bulgarian princesses. 2 of Peter's sons were sent to Constantinople as both negotiators and honorary hostages. In the meantime, Peter managed to secure the retreat of the Rus forces by inciting Bulgaria's traditional allies, the Pechenegs, to attack Kiev itself. 969, June 1st, Sviatoslav invades Bulgaria. Again, Sviatoslav's brief sojourn into the south awakened in him the desire to conquer these fertile and rich lands. In this intention, he was apparently encouraged by the former Byzantine envoy Kalokiros, who coveted the imperial crown for himself. Thus, after defeating the Pechenegs, he set up viceroys to rule Russia in his absence and turned his sights southward again. In summer 969, Sviatoslav returned to Bulgaria in force, accompanied by allied Pecheneg and Magyar contingents. In his absence, Pereyaslawets had been recovered by Boris II. The Bulgarian defenders put up a determined fight, but Sviatoslav stormed the city. Thereafter, Boris and Roman capitulated, and the Russes rapidly established control over eastern and northern Bulgaria, placing garrisons in Dorostelon and the Bulgarian capital of Preslav. There, Boris continued to reside and exercise nominal authority as Sviatoslav's vassal. In reality, he was little more than a figurehead, retained in order to lessen Bulgarian resentment at and reaction to the Russes' presence. Sviatoslav appears to have been successful in enlisting Bulgarian support. Bulgarian soldiers joined his army in considerable numbers, tempted partly by the prospects of booty, but also enticed by Sviatoslav's anti-Byzantine designs and probably mollified by a shared Slavic heritage. The Rus ruler himself was careful not to alienate his new subjects. He forbade his army from looting the countryside or plundering cities that surrendered peacefully. 970, January 1st, Byzantines defeat the Rus in early 970. A Rus's army, with large contingents of Bulgarians, Pechenegs, and Magyars, crossed the Balkan mountains and headed south. The Rus stormed the city of Philippopolis, now Plovdiv, and, according to Leo the Deacon, impaled 20,000 of its surviving inhabitants. Skleros, with an army of 10,000 to 12,000 men, confronted the Russes' advance near Arkadiopolis, now Lulaburgaz, in early spring 970. The Byzantine general, whose army was considerably outnumbered, used a feigned retreat to draw the Pecheneg contingent away from the main army into a prepared ambush. The main Rus's army panicked and fled, suffering heavy casualties at the hands of the pursuing Byzantines. The Byzantines were unable to exploit this victory or pursue the remnants of the Rus's army, since Bardas Phocas rose in revolt in Asia Minor. Bardas Skleros and his men were consequently withdrawn to Asia Minor, whilst Sviatoslav restricted his forces to the north of the Balkan Mountains. In the spring of the next year, however, with Phocas' rebellion subdued, Tzimiskes himself, at the head of his army, advanced north into Bulgaria. The Byzantines took the Bulgarian capital Preslav, capturing the Bulgarian Tsar Boris II, and confined the Rus in the fortress of Dorostelon, modern Silistra. After a 3-month siege and a series of pitched battles before the city walls, Sviatoslav conceded defeat and abandoned Bulgaria. 976, January 1st, Kometopoloi dynasty. Although the ceremony in 971 had been intended as a symbolic termination of the Bulgarian Empire, the Byzantines were unable to assert their control over the western provinces of Bulgaria. These remained under the rule of their own governors, and especially of a noble family led by 4 brothers called the Kometopoloi, i.e., the sons of the Count, named David, Moses, Aaron, and Samuel. The movement was regarded as a revolt by the Byzantine emperor, but it apparently saw itself as a sort of regency for the captive Boris II. As they began to raid neighboring territories under Byzantine rule, the Byzantine government resorted to a stratagem intended to compromise the leadership of this revolt. This involved allowing Boris II and his brother Roman to escape from their honorary captivity at the Byzantine court. in the hope that their arrival in Bulgaria would cause a division between the Komitopoloi and other Bulgarian leaders. As Boris II and Roman entered the region under Bulgarian control in 977, Boris II dismounted and went ahead of his brother. Mistaken for a Byzantine notable due to his attire, Boris was shot in the chest by a deaf and mute border patrol. Roman managed to identify himself to the other guards and was duly accepted as emperor. 977, January 1st to 1014, reign of Samuel of Bulgaria from 977 to 997. He was a general under Roman Win of Bulgaria, the second surviving son of Emperor Peter I of Bulgaria, and co-ruled with him, as Roman bestowed upon him the command of the army and the effective royal authority. As Samuel struggled to preserve his country's independence from the Byzantine Empire, his rule was characterized by constant warfare against the Byzantines and their equally ambitious ruler Basil II. In his early years, Samuel managed to inflict several major defeats on the Byzantines and to launch offensive campaigns into their territory. In the late 10th century, the Bulgarian armies conquered the Serb Principality of Duklia and led campaigns against the kingdoms of Croatia and Hungary. But from 1001, he was forced mainly to defend the empire against the superior Byzantine armies. 986, August 17. Battle of the Gates of Trajan. The Battle of the Gates of Trajan was a battle between Byzantine and Bulgarian forces in the year 986. It was the largest defeat of the Byzantines under Emperor Basil II. After the unsuccessful siege of Sofia, he retreated to Thrace, but was surrounded by the Bulgarian army under the command of Samuel in the Sredna Gora Mountains. The Byzantine army was annihilated, and Basil himself barely escaped. 997, July 16th, Battle of Spercheios. As a response, a Byzantine army under Nicephorus Uranos was sent after the Bulgarians, who returned north to meet it. The two armies met near the flooded river of Spercheios. The Byzantines found a place to ford, and on the night of 19 July 996, they surprised the unprepared Bulgarian army and routed it in the Battle of Spercheios. Samuel's arm was wounded and he barely escaped captivity. He and his son allegedly feigned death. After nightfall, they headed for Bulgaria and walked 400 kilometers, 249 miles, home. The battle was a major defeat of the Bulgarian army. At first, Samuel showed readiness for negotiations, but upon the news of the death of Bulgaria's official ruler Roman in prison, he proclaimed himself the sole legitimate Tsar and continued the war. 998, Samuel launched a major campaign against the Duklia to prevent an alliance between Prince Jovan Vladimir and the Byzantines. When the Bulgarian troops reached Duklia, the Serbian prince and his people withdrew to the mountains. Samuel left part of the army at the foot of the mountains and led the remaining soldiers to besiege the coastal fortress of Ulkinj. In an effort to prevent bloodshed, he asked Jovan Vladimir to surrender. After the prince refused, some Serb nobles offered their services to the Bulgarians, and when it became clear that further resistance was fruitless, the Serbs surrendered. Jovan Vladimir was exiled to Samuel's palaces in Prespa. The Bulgarian troops proceeded to pass through Dalmatia, taking control of Kotor and journeying to Dubrovnik. Although they failed to take Dubrovnik, they devastated the surrounding villages. The Bulgarian army then attacked Croatia in support of the rebel princes Krešimir III and Goislav and advanced northwest as far as Split, Trogir, and Zadar, then northeast through Bosnia and Rashka, and returned to Bulgaria. This Croato-Bulgarian war allowed Samuel to install vassal monarchs in Croatia. Samuel's relative Kosara fell in love with the captive Jovan Vladimir. The couple married after gaining Samuel's approval, and Jovan returned to his lands as a Bulgarian official along with his uncle Dragomir, whom Samuel trusted. Meanwhile, Princess Miroslava fell in love with the Byzantine noble captive Ashot, son of Gregorios Taranites, the dead governor of Thessaloniki, and threatened to commit suicide if she was not allowed to marry him. Samuel conceded and appointed Ashot governor of Dyrrachium. Samuel also sealed an alliance with the Magyars when his eldest son and heir, Gavril Radomir, married the daughter of the Hungarian Grand Prince Geza. 1004 January First Battle of Skopje. In 1003, Basil II launched a campaign against the First Bulgarian Empire and after 8 months of siege conquered the important town of Vidin to the northwest. The Bulgarian counterstrike in the opposite direction towards Odrin did not distract him from his aim, and after seizing Vidin, he marched southwards through the valley of the Morava, destroying the Bulgarian castles on his way. Eventually, Basil II reached the vicinity of Skopje and learned that the camp of the Bulgarian army was situated very close on the other side of the Vardar River. Samuel of Bulgaria relied on the high waters of the river of Vardar and did not take any serious precautions to secure the camp. Strangely, the circumstances were the same as at the Battle of Spercheios 7 years earlier, and the scenario of the fight was similar. The Byzantines managed to find a fjord, cross the river, and attack the heedless Bulgarians at night. Unable to resist effectively, the Bulgarians soon retreated, leaving the camp and Samuel's tent in the hands of the Byzantines. During this battle, Samuel managed to escape and headed east. 1014, July 29th, Battle of Kleidion. The Battle of Kleidion took place in the valley between the mountains of Belasica and Ograzden, near the modern Bulgarian village of Cluj. The decisive encounter occurred on July 29th with an attack in the rear by a force under the Byzantine general Nikephoros Xiphias, who had infiltrated the Bulgarian positions. The ensuing battle was a major defeat for the Bulgarians. Bulgarian soldiers were captured and reputedly blinded by order of Basil II, who would subsequently be known as the Bulgar Slayer. Samuel survived the battle, but died 2 months later from a heart attack, reportedly brought on by the sight of his blind soldiers. Although the engagement did not end the First Bulgarian Empire, the Battle of Kleidion reduced its ability to resist Byzantine advances, and it has been considered the pivotal encounter of the war with Byzantium. 1018. January 1st end of the First Bulgarian Empire resistance continued for 4 more years under Gavril Radomir, R. 1014 to 1015, and Ivan Vladislav, R. 1015 to 1018. But after the demise of the latter during the siege of Dyrrachium, the nobility surrendered to Basil II, and Bulgaria was annexed by the Byzantine Empire. The Bulgarian aristocracy kept its privileges, although many noblemen were transferred to Asia Minor, thus depriving the Bulgarians of their natural leaders. Although the Bulgarian Patriarchate was demoted to an archbishopric, it retained its sees and enjoyed a privileged autonomy. The Serbs and the Croats were forced to acknowledge the supremacy of the Byzantine emperor after 1018. The borders of the Byzantine Empire were restored to the Danube for the first time since the 7th century, allowing Byzantium to control the entire Balkan peninsula from the Danube to the Peloponnese and from the Adriatic Sea to the Black Sea. Despite several major attempts at restoring its independence, Bulgaria remained under Byzantine rule until the brothers Asen and Peter liberated the country in 1285, establishing the Second Bulgarian Empire. Epilogue: Bulgaria. The Bulgarian state existed before the formation of the Bulgarian people. Prior to the establishment of the Bulgarian state, the Slavs had mingled with the native Thracian population. The population and the density of the settlements increased after 681, and the differences among the individual Slavic tribes gradually disappeared as communications became regular among the regions of the country. By the second half of the 9th century, Bulgars and Slavs, and Romanized or Hellenized Thracians, had lived together for almost 2 centuries, and the numerous Slavs were well on the way to assimilating the Thracians and the Bulgars. Many Bulgars had already started to use the Slavic Old Bulgarian language, while the Bulgar language of the ruling caste, gradually died out, leaving only certain words and phrases. The Christianization of Bulgaria, the establishment of Old Bulgarian as a language of the state and the church under Boris I, and the creation of the Cyrillic script in the country were the main means to the final formation of the Bulgarian nation in the 9th century. This included Macedonia, where the Bulgarian Khan, Kuber, established a state existing in parallel with Khan Asparuh's Bulgarian Empire. The new religion dealt a crushing blow to the privileges of the old Bulgar aristocracy. Also, by that time, many Bulgars were presumably speaking Slavic. Boris I made it a national policy to use the doctrine of Christianity, that had neither Slavic nor Bulgar origin, to bind them together in a single culture. As a result, by the end of the 9th century, the Bulgarians had become a single Slavic nationality with ethnic awareness that was to survive in triumph and tragedy to present.